Well, first of all, thank you, Senator Scott, Senator Lee, all my colleagues that have joined us here, and thank you for coming here. As this is being described to us, and again, we've not seen a text, you'll hear that as a pretty common theme here, but our staffs have been briefed by leadership staff. The phrase that keeps going through my mind is Rube Goldberg. This doesn't have to be complex. This should actually be pretty simple. But again, because we haven't seen text, really all I have are questions. These are questions I have that haven't been answered, and I would suggest these are questions you ought to be asking Senate leadership about this bill. The first one, so they've set these thresholds at 4,000 and 5,000. You know, Obama's Secretary of Homeland Security, Jay Johnson, I think in 2016, after he'd already left office, said that 1,000 people a day. When he was in office, he said that was a bad day. Once he left office, he said 1,000 people a day overwhelmed the system. So if 1,000 people a day overwhelm the system, and that is true, that's still true today, why wouldn't we set the threshold at 1,000 rather than 4,000 or 5,000? You know, if you're going to pass something like this, and by the way, in our conference meeting, when Senator Langford, who again I think is the perfect guy to do the negotiation, he's knowledgeable about this, he gets along well with Democrats. The problem is our leader McConnell, is really the stage manager of this negotiation. And as Senator Scott talked about, without consulting the conference, he took away most of our leverage by saying that we would not even ask to tie Ukraine funding to actually securing the border. But anyway, when Senator Langford was asked, what is the goal of this? The answer wasn't to secure the border, it was to give the next president the tools he would need or she would need to secure the border. Well, that wasn't our expectation. I'm sure that's not the public's expectation. That's important because part of my problem with the 4,000 threshold that's discretionary and then the 5,000 that's mandatory shutting down the border. And my first question on that is, well, how are you going to do that? Do you have the personnel to actually shut down the border and do what you contemplate? Okay, that hasn't been answered. But the 4,000 discretionary level, is that going to hinder the next president? Will the left, who wants an open border that caused this problem, will they take the next president to court if he wants to shut down the border at 1,000? That question hasn't been answered. The other questions, we get indications, the negotiator said, this is going to cost a lot of money. And we have indications that it's going to cost a lot of money because, first of all, we're going to have to hire a lot more Border Patrol agents, I guess, to process up to 4,000 or 5,000 people a day. I mean, isn't that stupid? I mean, shouldn't we shut down the border and keep it under 1,000 so it doesn't overwhelm the current system as opposed to stand up a system that can accept 4,000 or 5,000 people a day? You know, we're told that we're going to fund sanctuary cities. I mean, isn't that stupid? I mean, take better care of illegal immigrants, and that's just going to cause more to come. So again, there's just so many aspects of this bill, as we understand it, that make no sense whatsoever. We're asking the questions. We're not getting the answers. You ought to be asking those questions. Maybe you can get the answers. But again, what this chart describes is, first of all, cause and effect, going back to the Obama administration, which started all this, by the way, how he abused prosecutorial discretion. That should be done on a case-by-case basis, but he gave that out to hundreds of thousands of people under DACA. That sparked all of this. We've been dealing with it ever since. And now the Biden administration is abusing parole, which is also supposed to be done case-by-case basis. Up until this administration, is about 5,000 awards of parole a year. Now we're granting it to hundreds of thousands of people. That abuse has to stop. But as Senators Lee and Scott both said, Trump, under existing law, he secured the border. That represents about 570 people a day. Biden, when he got into office, exploded the border, opened it up, and if we normalize 4,000 to 5,000, that's what the chart would look like. That's completely unacceptable, and I just put next to it, this was Obama. That was during 2013-14 time period. This is a level of immigration that President Obama described as a humanitarian crisis. It was, it is, this is completely unacceptable. And from my standpoint as Republican senator, I need to know from the negotiators, why is that not going to be the new normalized level of immigration under this Rube Goldberg negotiation? And now I'll turn it over to Senator Roger Marshall.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you so much, Senator.